presentation about time intelligence in a few clicks. We agreed that questions should be asked at the end. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will handle them at the end. All right. Thanks very much. And yeah, good luck, Bernard. You're still on mute. We can't hear you.
Thank you, Christian. And hello, everyone. Now, okay, so let me share my screen very quickly. There we go. And this goes here. All right. No, that's here it is. Okay, this goes. Now, today I put this title, The Time Intelligence, in a few clicks, but it's going to work quite of an introduction to calculation groups, and I hope you enjoy it. So, short introduction by myself. I'm a senior BI developer at Esbrina. It's a small consultancy based in Barcelona, where I'm from. And well, if you know me from the social networks, I'm very passionate about Power BI, DAX, and I would say and calculation groups. I come from Excel and Visual Basic, and I'm from industrial engineering. So, calculation groups are powerful, yeah, but don't take my word for it. So I put up a PBIX where you can see some applications very quickly. We're not going to go deep on this. It's just to see that what is possible with calculation groups. So first and foremost, for example, if you want to have like different calculations without creating new measures, here you can see, well, I just copied from here, but this has like only 5 measures, but for them I get like 2 calculations, like for current year and previous year. This is live, huh? So if I move to 2009, then I get the values, yeah? Here for previous year, you see it's 115,462, 115,462. So it is actually working, a very important thing. And of course, I could filter for other things. Also here, the calculations, I'm using current year and previous year, but it could be like year to date and previous year to date. Well, since I'm not filtering by month, this doesn't really have any big effect. But like we also have like year over year and all the other things. Notice that together with the calculations, I'm also having like different format strings. So we'll get into that as well. We'll leave like this. Now, what can we do? You can really like modify your model with a click. So here you see this is a screenshot of the model, and we have 2 relationships between date and the sales. One is like the order date is the active relationship, and we have an active relationship that goes to the delivery date. So, and depending on your use case, you might want to switch from one to the other. And then normally you would have to redo all your measures using the calculate, use relationship, and so on. But here now I have my measures here with by order date. But if I click here, it's returning me the value as if the delivery date was the active relationship. So very cool. Now, what else? This is a bit more niche, but I think it's also interesting. This is a recent thing that I found at work and I published in my blog. Here, we're having a weird case of matrix filtering. So here I added a measure filter and I say, okay, when this is yes, then show, because there's some rows I don't want to see. And this is a very basic, wait, let me see if I can show you. Where is it? With sales, where is the measure? With sales is a very, very easy. So it looks, if there's empty on the fact table is empty, then no. Otherwise, yes. So I only want to see rows that have data from the fact table. And then for some reason, this is blank, but it should not be. You see, if I remove this measure, I'm getting values. Yeah, for all those that have like sales amount, I get a forecast value as well. The thing is that I have some rows that should not be there, because this is just some stupid measure, but really there is no values coming from the fact table. So I want to hide this, and this should work, but it doesn't. Yeah, there's a strange relationship. If I remove city, then it works. If I put it, it doesn't. What I want to show you is that if we use a calculation group called visibility that I have over here, and I say only with cells, it works perfectly. So I think SQL BI has also made a couple of videos about this, and then they go into the performance analyzer DAX and find the exception, and then they come around with some solution for the measure so it doesn't happen like that. I think this approach is very safe. I mean, I think it works very well. And maybe if you don't want to fight with all this strange DAX that comes of performance analyzer, and which can change over time because there's no guarantee that it will stay like that, then I think this approach is very good as well. Now, more weird stuff. Maybe the first one is basically what you want. Maybe the second. This is a bit niche. Now we're getting to the more fancy stuff. You can make the columns of your metrics the same with a calculation group. Isn't that great? Here, it's not in any effect. But say, OK, but I want to use, boom. Now the columns are the same width, but I can like change it to whatever I like, and even make it. I want them to be the same width, but only the width I need for the largest number. So if I put auto, this works. And how I know, if I show, for example, only customer 2, you see the column is much narrower. But when I put both, now 2 is wider because 1 is there as well. So that's cool. I don't know if I came out with this solution, and I think it's very interesting. And now it's an even weirder effect. You see, I have this beautiful image and with a chart in which I made some conditional format, but just pointing to a measure with this value. Okay, this is just a color one, which well, it reads from the JSON and so on, but at the end, it's a table, right? So and it's just exactly this number. Now, I can change this color with a calculation group on the fly. So I can make this blue a little lighter, which is very nice if I want to. But I can make it more oh, sorry, this is too large. I can make it transparent as well, which is also very nice. Problem is that conditional formatting only works as long as you don't put any other legend, so to say. If it's a stock chart and I have like 2 or more categories, I cannot use conditional formatting anymore. So the use cases are very limited. And even though I'm very proud of this, I haven't found a real use case for it. But still, it's something that can be done. And maybe at some point the UI will allow you to use it in more settings. Okay, so you have a very quick overlook on what can you do with calculation groups. So let's go back to the theory. What are calculation groups? Okay, so a couple of definitions. The short one is like DAX expressions that replace the measures present in their scope. Okay. This one is from Ken Snyder with some modifications. It's a set of 1 or more DAX expressions called calculation items, represented as rows in a column that can be applied through the filter context of a report and have a default behavior of replacing any measure, and I added value and format string that exists in the filter context created by the calculation item. This will become much easier when we see it. I like this image. I mean, for most use cases, you can think of them as a jacket for your measures. Okay, so you have your measure and then you put like a calculate around it, but this calculate, you write it somewhere else, and then you just put the 2 things together. You get your measure, and then you get your jacket, and you have, boom, you have like previous year value or stuff like this. Okay. Now, why do we need calculation groups? Well, I show you a few examples already, and there's still even you can set the default value in slicers dynamically, which is even SQL BI made a video on that, but you can use it even like to say like current month. If nothing is selected, show current month. If something is selected, show what is selected. This is a very cool behavior as well. Oh, sorry. And yeah. Okay, so how do we build calculation groups? Well, we use them in Tabular Editor. Basically, you cannot create them through the Power BI desktop interface. You could theoretically build them with Visual Studio. I don't know anybody who does that, but I think it's possible. And this is available since last year, yeah. So some people might be worried, but because I said that I would replace the measures, huh? And it's true, but the good news is that we have some special functions that allow you to return to what you had. So whenever you use selected measure, it's like a placeholder that will take the measure that is actually in the scope and put it in your expression. So if you don't put anything and just put selected measure, then you do nothing. But from there you can build whatever you want. Selected measure +1 if you want, anything. Then, as you can imagine, there is a thing, because calculation groups replace all the measures in the scope, all of them. So you have a dynamic title, which is a measure, and you put object level filter with of a calculation group. This will also work on the title measure, okay? And then if you're doing a year-over-year calculation, then it will try to subtract title from the title, and then the whole visual will break. So you need to be careful how calculation groups work and make sure that it only apply on the measures that you want. So in order to decide whether or not you should do these transformations, there are some functions, and you have two options actually, which is selected measure name and is selected measure. So this will return you the name of the measure, and then you check whatever it is. And is selected measure, you just pass the measure as an argument, and it will return true or false. Now, in the same way that you can use selected measure to return the measure that you have, you can also do the same for the format string. Yeah. So if you don't want to modify the format string of whatever comes out of your calculation group, you just you go to the format expression and you say, okay, this selected measure format string, just as it comes, return it. But you can do other things. So for instance, we'll say that for most year time intelligence calculations, you just want to keep the same format string that comes. But if you're doing a year-over-year %, then you want to modify it. So, but only modify it if it's one of the affected measures. So that's why you'll need the ability to return the original format string as well. Okay, moving on. Now, how do we use calculation groups? Well, because we define them, but how can we use them in the report? It's like any other filter which is created. So you can, if you put it in a matrix, then whatever it's in that row will be affected by that calculation. Also, you can put them in the filter panel, at the visual level, page level, whatever, or even within DAX expressions. So you put calculate and your measure, and then say, okay, from my calculation group and the calculation item equals blah, blah, blah. Then this calculation item will be applied to that measure. Okay, and will return, and then will become another measure. I recommend personally not mixing one with the other. Either you do these or you do the other ones, but both together it gets complicated. Anyway, there's some ground rules as well. You can only have one calculation item per calculation group applied to the scope, otherwise none is applied. Okay, if you go to a page level and you apply 2 calculation items, it's the same as you didn't do anything, because Power BI doesn't know what to do with it. But if inside that page you have a matrix and then you put the calculation column, the calculation item column in it's like in the row section or in the column section, then the measures that are inside will be either affected by one or the other. Then it's okay. Yeah, just in one, when the measure is evaluated, only one calculation item from each calculation group can be active. Yeah, you can have several, but from different calculation groups. Now, this should not be an issue because we know that implicit measures are no good. But once a calculation group is created, implicit measures cannot be created anymore. So if you had some already placed in a visual, they would continue to work. But you'll see that you cannot, drag and drop any more value columns into any visual as a value. And all the signs of, of the sigma sign and all those will also disappear from the model. But then again, maybe it's a feature. It's a good practice not to use implicit measures anyway. Now, I fell into that trap sometimes because calculation groups look like a function almost. You put something and then you get something in return, but they only work on measures. Yeah, you cannot pass a variable or even a calculate expression inside. It doesn't work. You only can put a measure. Okay. Otherwise, it does nothing. Okay, so we shall see a use case. This is the time intelligence, and that's why the title was time intelligence in a few clicks. So normally time intelligence, if you just go the measure way, it can be time consuming, right? So here we have like just 4 measures, but if you want all these time intelligence calculations for each of them, then it's not exponential, but it's a very high steep number of measures very quickly. So from this sort of approach, we'll get to this one, which is much more nicer, and it's very nice because if you decide to change the way you do year-over-year calculation, you do it in one place, and well, there's all sorts of good things out of it. So let's do it. I'll close this one just in case I get out of memory. I'll save it, and let's move to this one. So here I already have all these huge list of measures, and and here we have for several months and so on. But let's simplify. We'll just work with one of them. Sales amount. So you maybe, I don't know, I've seen all sorts of drama stories of how people do time intelligence. You should always have a date table marked as a date table. Okay, so you should always do that. Okay, very good. And then we use the functions for time intelligence, right? So for previous year, this is what Microsoft tell you to, like, so calculate same period last year, date. Okay, beautiful. This has some caveats, so to say. If I use this measure here, it works nice, you see, because for January 2008, for previous year, I'm getting the value that for January 2007. So, okay, beautiful, that's very nice. Just be aware that you get this as well. So if your calendar has future dates, you'll get the previous year value, even though you don't have current year value. Something to be aware of. So of course you can hide it in many ways, but there's better definitions of previous year, a bit more sophisticated, that will prevent from these values from appearing, and we'll see how to use them. Okay. What I want to show you is, but first things first, we want to create a calculation group. So let's imagine that you have one measure, then you come up with some expression, you say, wow, this is so cool, I want to apply this same transformation to a number of measures that I have. Okay, how can we do that? So this is important. You can do the same things in Tabular Editor 2 and 3. Okay, I like working with 3, but maybe not everybody has it. So I'll show you one approach to do it in Tabular Editor 2. Okay, so I'll just open it real fast. Okay, here I have unsupported features enabled. For what we're doing is not necessary. So my approach, if I work with Tabular Editor 2, if you work with it, you already know that it has no IntelliSense. So it's very tough to write things on Tabular Editor 2 because you get no help. So, but anyway, you open the model with Tabular Editor, and then you create a new calculation group, which is here. Very good. And then I would call that like simple time intelligence. Okay, very good. Then, also each calculation group is like a table that has a column. by default, the name of the column is name. Please change that. I always use the same name of the calculation group. Intelligence, it's easier to understand. And then you have to create the different calculation items, which will be the rows of that table. Okay, they have a name. So here for current year, we'll just use the same. So in this case, selected measure. Okay. Here using the property, this is the value expression, but you have the formatting expression. Here, if you leave it empty, normally it's no big issue. I would recommend you to complete it. Selected measure format string, super long name. Okay. This would be our first. But since we are here, let's do another one. Eh? And this would be like previous year. Very good. And then we would go, what we would do, yeah? Here is what my proposal is, just go and you copy the transformation that you already have. And you type it here, okay? And the thing is that you want this to work with any measure that you put there. So you would just remove this and put selected measure. And this works. And here, well, selected measure format string. This is not really needed, but I think it's good to do. Yes. Okay. So what happened when we save back to the puzzle? You'll see this yellow banner, but this is every time you create a new calculation group or even a new calculation item, you'll get this warning. Well, this, but then boom, then you have your calculation group here. If you go and have a look, it's just, you see, a table. And here we didn't set the order in which they should come, so there's just -1. But we can say, no, I want first this and this, and then this will change. Let's see, does this work? Let's try it. So if we copy this, can I copy that? Okay, we come here. Now I'll change that to, wait, year month, I'll make this a matrix, I'll put the month back here. Okay, and now what I'll do is I'll bring this column, which contains all the calculations, wait, nothing wrong. And we'll put the, so what is it, the sales amount, for instance, here. Okay, very nice. Okay, this is a little bit too big. But anyway, you see that indeed it is working. Yeah, so I'm getting the value, and I'm also getting the same problem that I had. So I'm getting the same thing, but now it's a column. So if I had more measures, for instance, if I'm not interested in having this here, and I put another measure, for example, margin. I can put the margin here and then go to, where is it? Values and turn on as rows. And this is already very cool. So you can have a list of measures with the current year and the previous year value. Even if I had the measures created, which I have, it would be any easy to put the values like that, right? So anyway, this is pretty cool. But can we do any better? Of course we can. As I was saying, there's like some, because this takes time, and also the definitions, maybe can we improve? There is a website which is awesome, which is called daxpatterns.com, where the guys from SQL BI have fought with all sorts of problems and came up with very good solutions to all of them. So I said, well, these calculations groups can help me do this, that, and they did great definitions. Why? If we bring these two together. So that's what I did. And let's do that. You can do that with Tabular Editor 2 as well. So where is it? Here we go to advanced scripting. I mean, you have to download, of course, the script. I'll share the link. Where is it? Sorry about that. No, looking at the wrong place. Wait. I remember GitHub, of course. And then we have time intelligence. And here we have the time intelligence. Here in Tabular Editor, this applies not just to calculation group, but to anything. You can like script things out. And previously you had like to configure some parameters. Now you don't. You can actually save that as a macro if you want, or custom action is called here. And this is called like time intelligence or whatever. And then you say, okay, this is a model thing because it doesn't really apply to anything in particular. Okay, so now I would go just to my model, or I don't know. And here screen, well, no, custom action, sorry, time intelligence. No measures affected by the calc group. Okay, this is one thing you have to decide on. Which measures do you want to affect it? Yeah. So here I would say the measure I want affected is the margin percentage, and say, what is the other? Sales. Where is the sales? Sales amount. Sales amount here. Okay. Then I run again the script. Oh, it doesn't work like this. Can I make this crazy? This is complicated. No. Create new. No, but it doesn't work like that. That's that. Okay. Here, well, you can execute it like this. Maybe this doesn't work that nice. Let me just open it real quick with Tabular Editor 3 because I don't think you have that problem over there of applying. Here, I'll do the trick that Patrick did on Guy in a Cube with that same script. Okay, this is pretty much the same thing with nicer. So here, you see now I have this calculation group already in my toolbar, and then I can use both. So this is margin percentage, sales amount, and that's about it. And total cost. Well, just leave one out, and then you click here, boom. And that's okay. What's the name that you want? Time intelligence is fine. Okay, this is the column. Let's call it the same. Then this will create a table which will contain the names of the affected measures. And we'll see in a minute why is this so cool. And then the column is called measure. Okay, your fact table, sales. Okay. What's the main date column of that table is the order date. Okay. Where's your date table? It's date. And the date is stored in the date column. And the year is here. This is for the dynamic labels that you used earlier. Okay, so it's done. Here we have already our calculation group. So we say back to the model. And now we should have the time intelligence, the big one. Okay. Now we move to the second. Now here, we have a metric which tells amount, but if I add now the time intelligence here at the top, you see I already have all the calculations, so I don't have to type anything. They're already done, they work, even the format string is correct, which is nice. And here I can put it as a filter as well. Okay, so if I put like previous year or year over year on this thing, this is also very nice. I got some weird thing. I mean, in theory, I could put like the value, the dynamic title here inside. Sometimes I get strange. Oh, sorry. No, that's not what I wanted to do. If I add a card and I put this measure inside, this will show me exactly what's the label for this calculation. So I'm doing previous year with 2009 selected, it would return me 2008. If I'm doing year over year, this is 2009 versus 2008. You can put that as a title or something, okay? And that is pretty cool. One use case I didn't show today, but doing with you can also hide some of the data labels, leave just the last one if you want, and then use the dynamic label, because this you cannot do even with the update that we just saw, because this is a measure. So if you use the new feature, you'll get a year over year, y over y. But if you want to do that, you'll have to go the other way. Anyway, okay, yeah, I want to talk about the calculated table that is hidden here. You see, now I have a calculated table that has the names of the measures. But how does this work? So if we have a look at the calculation items of the new calculation group, for example, for year over year, you see here what it does. First checks which is the measure that is inside of the scope. So it starts to say, okay, what selected measure name? And then if selected measure name is in values of this table, then it does one thing. Then, well, it has another case, which is the special, which is the label as value measure for the dynamic label, then does something else. And at the end, if it's neither of these two cases, it returns the measure. So if you have any other measure created over there, then it will do nothing. So for instance, if I'm getting, okay, very quick. So I have a matrix, and I put my time intelligence over here, and then I put my measures. So I put all of them here: margin, sales amount, total cost, margin percentage, and I put them as rows, values. Where is it? Rows. Okay. If you realize, look at the total cost. Total cost stays the same. It's not doing the trick. Yeah. Okay, but normally, if you do it, well, the most normal approach would be like, to add them in the calculation items. If I put here like a list, or I include like each selected measure and I put the measures there, then I would have to go to each of those calculation items and add the total cost, total cost, total cost, total cost. But not just one, but twice, because with the format string expression happens the same thing. So I would have to go here, total cost, total cost. So I would have to do like 16 times this operation, which is not nice, right? So instead, since I have the list centralized here, I can just come here and say total cost. And here it is. And then total cost is doing the trick now. Isn't this nice? Okay. So this is more or less what I wanted to talk. There's just one little thing I want to discuss with you before finishing my presentation, and that's what happens when you have more than one calculation group. Yeah, because I said that you can use one item from each calculation group. Well, calculations groups have a property which is called calculation group precedence, and it's just a number. Okay, so here, this is what the SQL BI says. They are applied by decreasing precedence number. But I find myself it's easier to remember that. So higher precedence means farther out into expression. You were talking about jackets, so imagine that you wear several jackets. So higher precedence would be like the jacket that is outside, and the lowest will be the jacket that is inside. And then inside you still have the measure. Yeah? But so the outer calculation group will affect any measures that are included inside the lower calculation groups. So here, if this has precedence 2 and precedence 1, then this is what you get. So these days, the precedence 2 one is outside, and the precedence 1 becomes inside the other one. Okay, but this is complicated. So just some good practices when using calculation groups. Keep it simple, yeah, because you don't really get to see the final data that is evaluated. So when things go awry, then it's like, I don't know. So do step by step, keep it simple. Limit the scope, yeah. So this if selected measure, because otherwise you might get into problems. And then, as I always said before, stay away from mixing measures defined with calculation groups and calculation groups in the filter context. Yeah, because what happens if your measure has like one precedence, but you're adding another one which has a higher or lower precedence, very difficult to understand what's going to happen. So stay away from doing that. And then there is, well, something we didn't really talk about, but it's like when you're defining a calculation item, in theory, you could use a calculate expression using another calculation item of the same calculation group. Yeah, so say my new calculation item is calculate, selected measure, and then using this other calculation item. Theoretically, you can do that, but it's limited, and it's better not to get into that because it's called sideways recursion. And when I was preparing this script, then I presented the first version, which was using that, and they said, well, maybe you should avoid that. So the script now doesn't have it. And I think with this, I finished my presentation. Here you have all the contact. Please connect with me on Twitter. And here you have the GitHub. And very glad if you read the blog, because you'll find there is a Time Intelligence the Smart Way is the blog post in which I talk about this script, and you also have the link directly to the script from there. But well, here in the GitHub, I'm sure you'll find it. And I have a few videos on YouTube, but very few. That's pretty much it. I would really like to hear your questions and see if you're interested into trying out calculation groups. You see the potential is huge, and the learning curve is not that bad. I would say it's worse with Charticonator. What do you think?
Thank you very much, Bernard. I don't see any questions in the chat, so let's give people a few more seconds if they wish to ask something. Looks like everything is clear.
Well,
from my point of view, really, really great. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm familiar with calculation groups already, and I see really the potential, especially if you're working with large data models, that you not to have to repeat the calculations and so on. You just create a calculation group, and there you go. Really great.
Glad.